Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Leap. Thank you all for taking the time and tuning in. And as always, I hope that this story, like the others we've had, is going to bring some comfort to those of you who are grieving. And we have a special guest today. It's a different kind of story. And I want to introduce Muriel Toubassy to you. And Muriel is an elementary school teacher. She is a mother of a 1-year-old. And she is going to share with us her story of her father, who was diagnosed with throat cancer. And so I would like to introduce you, Muriel, to Leap. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so grateful to be here and to share my story. I hope I can do it justice, and I hope I can touch some hearts today.
Well, why don't we jump right in now? Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about the story of your dad? And just, I'll ask questions as we go along. So please.
Amazing. So I remember December 18. It's so funny. When people say they remember specific dates and specific moments and times that their babies were born, or I never believed it until these monumental moments happen. So on December 18, I get a phone call from my dad, and I had some of my girlfriends over. I had him on speaker because I was anticipating happy news. I was aware that he was in the process of doing biopsies and scans to figure out why he's been having throat pain and trouble swallowing for about a year and a half. And because of the pandemic and the global crisis that was happening, all of his appointments were pushed. And so we would keep waiting and waiting. And eventually, after 2 biopsies, we found out that it was actually cancer in the back of his tongue. And when he gave me the news in front of my friends, I was shocked. My friends were shocked. Maybe I shouldn't have had him on speaker, but that was my instinct. These are my close friends. And the first thing he did was just try to comfort me when sharing the news. And right away, I gave my phone to my husband and I just kept whispering, I can't lose my dad. I can't lose my dad, not now. So right away, the first stage of grief started and I had no idea. So that's kind of where our journey starts.
I really appreciate what you said, that you didn't understand the power behind a date, right? Because things become before my father was diagnosed and after my father was diagnosed. We start marking time with these significant traumatic events that happen in our life. So you said not now with your dad when he got the diagnosis, not now. And you shared a little bit about that, what you mean by that prior to the recording. Can you talk to us about what was going on with your dad and why this was particularly traumatic to hear?
Kind of backstory. We are immigrants here from Canada. And when my family moved here, it was my mom, my brother, myself, and my dad. For about a year, my dad was struggling to find work. So his decision was to leave and to find work abroad. So since I was in grade 2 till now, till a few years ago, my dad has been visiting once a year. So there was a sense of already losing that bond with him, not having that relationship because he had to be away. He had to sacrifice for us. And finally, he comes back to Canada to want to retire and be with us and to build those relationships again. And a year and a half later, we get this diagnosis that our lives are about to change, because when someone is diagnosed with cancer, it's not just him that's suffering and him that is going through all of these traumatic events. It's also the family, because we are so stressed, we are afraid, and we're grieving with him as well. When I found out that he was going to go through this journey, I felt like I was losing him all over again, because I knew what the journey could look like. And I actually thought right away, he's going to die. That's it. I lost my chance with my dad. I'm losing all the chances I have to make new memories and to build memories with him. So right away, I got super, not negative, but I just felt such a weight on my shoulders. So that was kind of the backstory of why I felt this way. And also, I was pregnant. So I didn't get to tell him yet that I had a baby on the way. And my friends were over because I was sharing with them the announcement. So we were all together sharing.
So you got the best news of your life.
100%. Yes.
And the saddest news of your life.
A roller coaster.
At the same time.
Yes. I never felt so high and low in a moment in my whole life. So happy. Then all of a sudden, I know I'm pregnant. I'm about to go through this awful thing with my dad. And I haven't even told him yet the good news. So it was a lot.
So Muriel, I'm actually just feeling the magnitude of this insanity of the weight of those two. Like, really, they are polar opposites.
Yes.
And so when your dad announced this, here your friends are, you've got it on because you probably, what were you going to tell your dad? Is that why you put him on speaker? Because you were
No,
going to like,
I have no idea because my friends knew that he was going through this, through all of the tests, and they were always messaging me like, "What's going on? How's your dad doing?" They knew he was struggling with swallowing. He felt like he was literally being choked. That's how bad it was. And we were so stressed about him not getting the appointments on time, him not being seen by a doctor because of the pandemic. And I just felt like we're going to get good news. Let's add some more positive to this day. I'm having a baby. I'm having a healthy dad. We're going to be okay. But that did not happen. So that's where we're at.
okay, so you find out that he has this diagnosis. It doesn't mean anything to anybody at this point, right? Because he
No,
probably doesn't know much. Then he has
no,
to go get more testing to
exactly.
determine what stage of cancer does he have, what's
Yes.
treatment options, etc.
Mhm, mhm.
So tell us what, and also after he delivers this news, you don't tell him about the baby, I'm assuming, on the call.
No, no, no. I wait a few days for Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Um,
and then on top of this is during the holidays.
yes, Christmas. Yes, we had all these events happening. Yes, yes. And it's so funny because when he used to not live with us, he would always come around the Christmas holiday. So it felt like Christmas is always just such an important holiday for us.
Okay. So
Mm,
now you've got all of these things happening.
yes.
Your mother knows, obviously, that you're pregnant.
No, no, nobody did. It was just, I know I should have told my parents first before my friends, but I'm
No,
just
no, no, no,
excited,
no. I tell my friends things first before
right?
even
Friends
my
are
husband
family
sometimes.
too. Yes, yes. So I was waiting because I wanted Christmas Eve. Mom and dad
Got you.
got
And you were
here,
get
had a gift in mind. I was ready. Yeah.
so tell us what happens next then. What happens?
So the next step is we know that for the next month and a half he's going to appointments. He's scheduled to see a surgeon, an oncologist, a million doctors. And honestly, I was not well educated in this whole world of cancer and these huge diseases, I would say. So I felt helpless. And not only that, we weren't allowed to go to his appointments. So I was sending in my dad to these really important appointments where he's getting so much information and about to make a huge decision by himself. And I'm sure it was overwhelming. So he ended up deciding that he was going to, oh, wow, I have to take a step back. Initially, my dad wanted to not do anything because he just said, that's it. I don't want to do chemo. I don't want to do radiation. I don't want to do surgery. And in the back of my mind, I wanted to tell him, like, no, but dad, there's something really exciting coming, something that's going to give you some light. But I was still waiting for Christmas Eve. So between the 18th and 24th, he was going back and forth thinking he knew that potentially he would have to do a surgery or radiation or chemo. And he was set on kind of slowly ending his life. And on the 24th, I told him that we were expecting, and he was so happy, so excited. So that kind of changed his way of thinking that, yes, something exciting to live for. So once he found out I was pregnant, he decided that he wanted to do surgery. And surgery meant that they would have to remove about 70% of his tongue, his lymph nodes, salivary glands to remove the tumor because it was humongous. I have no idea how it hid behind his tongue, how it wasn't seen, how it wasn't detected. It was insane. It was insane.
And then what's going on with your mother at this point? And also, do you have siblings? I think I needed to back up a little bit too and talk about your nuclear
Yes.
family. So set that up for us.
Yes. So my mom, again, just like me, was expecting him to come to Canada. We're going to have a nice restart. And they didn't have the best marriage. So they were sometimes in conversation of, you know what, we've been separated physically for over 20 years. Maybe it's a good idea that we separate, we go our different ways. I don't know you, you don't know me anymore. And all of a sudden, during those conversations, he gets his diagnosis, he gets this new reality, and she decides to stay. She decides that, you know what, I'm married to you. Let's figure this out. You're going to need help. I want to support you. So since this all happened, she stuck by him through it all. So she's been his listening ear, his support, his advocate. So I'm definitely very proud of her and thankful that she's there to help
And
him.
they physically live together now, right?
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes.
how about siblings? Do you have any brothers or
Yes.
sisters?
I have a younger brother. He's 28 and he lives with my parents. I'm so grateful for him because he's supporting them as well, taking my dad to appointments sometimes, my dad losing his job because of his diagnosis, helping support the family. So he's taken on a lot of stress, not a burden, but he's taken on a lot of responsibility.
Because
But
during this time you gave birth to your baby. So how long has it
exactly,
been now that your father has been dealing with?
it's been a year and a half.
So talk to us about so over this year and a half, of course, you're pregnant. So you're trying to probably keep your stress level down, but yet he's going through treatments. And
Yeah.
so I can imagine that was nothing but a roller coaster ride for you too, from
Yeah.
joy to grief. Talk to us about, because I don't know that we actually spend a lot of time thinking about a grief journey when we're dealing with somebody who has got a diagnosis with
Mhm.
cancer, because we're hoping for the best. We
Yeah.
don't know if it's going to turn terminal at some point.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because what stage cancer was he in when it was
Um, if I'm not mistaken, it was stage three,
3? Okay.
maybe even four, because like I said, it was a huge mass. So I think it was between those two, not terminal, luckily. However, if it does come back, then it becomes terminal because he can't have surgery for a second time. There won't be anything left because it's, like I said, they removed about 70% of his tongue. The other half is a piece of his thigh. So if they have to go back again and remove something, it wouldn't be he wouldn't be able to survive that.
Can he speak?
Yes, so he can't speak. It's just really difficult to understand sometimes. His tongue is very heavy. He has trouble swallowing. He doesn't have that technique anymore. So it can sound sometimes like he's underwater.
And is that something that may get better over time? Or is this what he is,
I think this is his new normal.
new normal?
Like I said, everything is backed up because of the pandemic. So he hasn't been getting that constant support from swallow therapists and speech, not because they just don't have the time. They are overwhelmed with how many people need help right now. So he's been seeing somebody about once a month, but he needs more support just to fully heal again.
And just to be clear, your father has a feeding tube. Will he ever be able to eat solids again, or will he from now on be on a feeding tube?
So that's what we're trying to find out now. However, he's done the live x-ray. Some people say there's hope, like some of the radiologists, I think it's called radiologists, they believe that he could, and then he'll talk to his doctor and he'll give him a little bit of kind of a negative news that it might not happen. So my dad just wants it straight, like, just tell me, am I going to eat or not? He just wants to be able to move forward without question.
Yeah, which is
Difficult.
so difficult because, of course, he still has his sense of smell. He's got all of his faculties. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people don't understand. I worked in acute brain injury for a long time, and it's very complex set of muscles where we're actually able to swallow.
Yes.
And drinking water is some of the most complex because it's so thin, right? Water
Yes.
is so thin. Maybe
Yes.
people, just to give them an idea, like when you drink and we say, oh, it went down the wrong pipe, and we aspirate, we cough it up. When people have these issues around swallowing, I don't think a lot of people
Realize
truly
how complicated it
how
is.
complex it is. And
Yes.
so he's got this tongue that he's trying to figure out,
How to swirl around his mouth.
yes, how to work
Mhm.
the whole thing, all and everything that has to work in unison to actually
Yes.
swallow food.
It is so difficult. He once tried to put a little bit of water on a spoon to swallow. It took him 5 minutes
Mm.
to just get it down. And I could physically see his body he's trying to move the water with his whole body. It was watching my dad, my best friend, struggle to have a little bit of water was so sad to witness.
Yeah. So let's talk about your grief journey as the
Mhm.
daughter. And you're trying to raise a daughter, right? Because I mean, a new mother, just forget about it. Just being a new mother is so exhausting in every way possible. And you're trying to support your father. And you're probably, I'm sure, trying to support your mother, who's trying to support your father.
Yeah.
What does this look like for you on a personal level?
So before our podcast or interview, I was looking up what is grief because there are so many layers. And if I'm not mistaken, and please jump in, there's five, maybe seven layers of grief. There's denial, anger, and all these things. And I don't think I fit in.
Right. Let's
Yeah.
just be clear. It's the 5 stages of
Yeah,
grief.
it's 5 stages. That's right.
Yeah. And those 5 stages really, which a lot of people don't know either, those 5 stages were really about, it was about a human being's stages of grief who had terminal illness. But then it sort of, all of a sudden it got morphed into this, oh, these are the 5 stages of grief. So they are not applicable to everybody for sure. And not everybody goes through the 5 stages, and they are definitely not linear. So let's just talk about what you've been going
And that's exactly what I was going to say because I felt I didn't connect to that. I felt for me, my grief journey was, first of all, shock. I was shocked, but then hopeful. And then I was angry, helpless, hopeless, just kind of back and forth. And now I'm currently in the stage of I'm standing by, I'm waiting for the egg. Is it the expression, the egg to drop? Is that what it is?
It's called the other shoe. Yeah, waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I am waiting for something to drop. I'm afraid. I don't want things to turn bad again. So currently my grief journey is when I got the news, I was devastated. I would cry all the time while I was pregnant. So I felt guilty. I would tell my husband, I'm really scared my daughter's going to come out just so traumatized just by being inside of me with all these emotions. And now I feel that I need to take a step back sometimes because it's sometimes being in that environment and being sad all the time and worried, it's a lot on your mental health. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just insane. There's so much around it.
Right. We're going to break it down because grieving is exhausting. Worrying is exhausting because worrying is one of those very active, it's a very active emotion, isn't it? Because it takes a lot of energy to worry.
Yes.
And when we're worrying, it's because it's the unknown, which means it lives in the future, which means we can't do anything about it, which means worrying is a waste of time, right? But we all do it because we're human, and we want to know what to expect, but of course we can't know because it's the future, right? So you said something about, I had to take a step back because you were constantly worrying. And of course you're pregnant and you're worried about, what is that stress doing to my body? How is that going to impact my daughter, etc. What did taking a step back look like? What did it feel like? What did it look like? And how did you do it?
When I say like I took a step back, I had to disconnect sometimes from my phone. I had to disconnect from all the information coming my way. Unfortunately, I had to disconnect from my mom, my brother, even sometimes my dad, because I would be messaging him at the hospital. He was there for about 2 months and he would send us pictures of his journey. And he was really sick at the hospital. So I had to not look at the pictures, not look at the information. And I had to ask support from my husband and my friends to kind of check in sometimes so that I'm not the one getting the information. And it also felt like taking time for myself, like going for a walk, doing something for me that didn't involve that part of my life. So and relying on people around me to just take on that weight for just a second.
What you've done and what you're talking about is creating boundaries to maintain your own emotional and physical health. And of course, take care of this beautiful baby that you're carrying. Were you explicit with your family around these boundaries, or did you just shut your phone off? How did you establish these limitations with your family?
So subtly, I didn't want to come out right away and say, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to get these pictures. I physically would put it away and I would just get my husband to check and to relay the message to me in a more friendlier way, more easygoing way than what I was getting. So I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings I wanted my dad to know that he can always count on me. He can always send me a message, send me a picture. And I didn't want to close that door or feel like he had no one.
But at the same time, you had to take care of you. And I'm sure your husband was worried about you too and the baby.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
And was there anything tangible that you did? I mean, I know that you put your phone down and whatnot, but what were you doing to help yourself process these complex emotions of, well, were you talking to your husband? Did you talk to a dear friend? Did you talk to a therapist? What were you doing to help you kind of navigate these multiple things that were happening in your life at the same time?
So I think honestly, this conversation is probably the first time that I'm actually saying this out loud, expressing our journey, expressing my grief, because I just feel like I've been going through the motions, trying to go day by day, but not really looking back at what happened the day before and processing. I'm just trying to survive every single step. So it's kind of funny you're saying that. I'm realizing, like, wait, I didn't actually take a second to understand what this year has looked like for me, how it has affected me, how it has transformed me. And it's a lot to look within. It takes a lot of effort to process all of this. So I think today, just having this conversation, opening that door, will hopefully lead to more understanding of what just happened.
And I think that's an excellent point because you're not over it, you're in it. You're
Exactly.
literally in the thick
There's
of
no
it.
end just yet.
No, you are in the thick of what is going on with your dad.
Exactly.
And you are also in the thick of raising a toddler.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm scared. It's gonna be okay.
It's going to be okay. And you haven't had time to reflect because it's difficult to reflect, as I said, when you're in it. I mean, it's that age old saying about fish with the last and discover water because they're in it. And so I'm interested to know, just while we're having this conversation, I mean, I want to hear what's been happening. Like, you gave birth to your daughter, and so now you've got this baby to care for, and you're still trying to support people in your life. Do you feel like your family was also sensitive to this idea of what you were trying to manage, with the birth of your new baby or your pregnancy, for example? Because I'm sure your mother and your dad also must feel like they were all over the place with the joy and the fear and the
Yes.
worry.
Yes. So it's so funny. When I told them the news that I was pregnant, they were so happy, but of course worried because they knew that we were about to go through a really difficult journey. And I kept telling my dad, Elise is going to be the light of your life. She's going to bring you joy. She's going to bring you so much to look forward to. But then in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh no, this means I don't want to put that pressure on my daughter already. She's not even born yet. And she's going to be this jewel, this light in our life that's going to be my dad's motivation to live. That's a lot of pressure. So I already felt that mom guilt, and she hasn't even been earthside yet. And when she was born, I would go over to their house often, sometimes when I was still postpartum, still very tired. And I would go there with the intention of making sure my dad's smiling and happy and joyful and giving him a reason to just push a little longer because his depression was so bad. And I just kept trying to tell him to just hold on, please just hold on. We want you here. You did all this work. You can just one more day. But I just realized from this whole journey that you cannot force anybody to do anything. So he had to be the one to want to have the will to live, to have the will to do the treatments and do all of these things. So next time, hopefully there's no next time, but I will not put any pressure on him or myself to do anything. He has to go with his gut, his instinct, and just follow his own lead.
Do you have any idea how profound it is what you just said?
Really? Okay, good. We're on the right track then.
And just for listeners, we're having a massive thunderstorm. So if you hear that lightning in the background, it's not an audio issue. What you said was so profound because, as a therapist, it's something that I think we always grapple with where, you can support people in a process, but the
Mhm.
change really is within. It's, Alcoholics Anonymous knows this, right? AA knows this. They're like, you have to want it. You can't quit an addiction because of the people in your life, because of who you love. That has to be internal. Anything we want to do, from running a marathon to losing weight, whatever change we want to make, of course we can have an external motivation, like your dad being like, you know what? I wasn't going to go through all of this, but now I've got this grandchild coming. And so I'm really going to jump in the game, and I'm going to do this hard thing. But that has to come from inside. It has to. It has to, because nobody around us can do the hard work, no matter what it is.
And he started feeling like, okay, Elise is going to be the reason. But then in the middle of his depression, he would tell me, I wish I didn't do the surgery. because he missed food. He would smell food, he would cook food, and he'd say, I just want to eat. I just want to drink. What kind of life is this? And not even the food was his worst part, is I want to work. I am still so young. I have so much knowledge and I can't even speak. Nobody can understand me properly. So he felt like a prisoner in his own body. And he would tell me, I wish I didn't do the surgery. And this is where the regrets comes for me, because I was the one to push him, say, just do it. Let's see what happens. It's gonna be good news. They're gonna take it out. You're gonna be okay. And for him to feel not okay, I felt really bad. I felt so bad.
Okay, let's pause here. This is important because so much a part of the grief journey for so many of us, not everybody. And, I hate to make these broad sweeping statements that obviously do not fit everybody's circumstance, but I've been doing this long enough to know that for many of us, there's guilt of some form when we lose somebody to death, or as you're saying right now, when we push people, and that's, I'm going to make air quotes around push, because ultimately it is still our decision, right? Your father made the choice.
Absolutely.
And, you, of course, had a million reasons why you wanted your father to continue living, but ultimately it's his body. He had to make the choice. So let me ask you something. What have you done with that guilt? And I'd love for you, as transparent as you can possibly be around this particular topic. Are you still carrying guilt currently?
I don't want to cry.
It's okay. Everybody cries during their interview, including me. So don't worry. It's a grief. It's a grief podcast.
I do feel guilty because when I see us eating, when I see us enjoying our lives, and when I see us doing activities with Elise and he's not able to do them because he's so tired, I feel so guilty, because for me, I feel like someone's quality of life is more important than anything. And I want him to live a happy life, and I don't think he is, because he wants to do so much, but he's so limited. And seeing him like that, I feel so guilty, because maybe he would have been happier if he wasn't watching us play, watching us go on activities, and watching us eat. It's really like torture. So I feel guilty. And maybe if I could go back, I would have done things differently. But I'm just so happy he's here. So I feel guilty even saying that. There's so much guilt.
Exactly. Okay. So really, no matter what we talk about, it comes full circle. And I just feel so guilty. Okay.
Exactly.
So let's talk about this. We all know that guilt does not serve us because, okay, so I talked about worry lives in the future, guilt lives in the past, none of which is in the present moment, right? And we always hear live in the present moment. What does that even mean? Because most of us are waffling between worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, or feeling guilty over that, something that has, or feeling regret, or feeling ... whatever it is, if it's anything other than a really beautiful, happy memory, right? And so my question to you is, have you talked to your father about this guilt that you feel?
No, I haven't. I'm a good listener. So he tells me how he feels and how sometimes he wishes he did things differently. And I'm listening to him. I haven't shared with him how I feel. I just tell him I'm sad that he's in this situation and I wish things were different, but I'm so happy he's here, because I'm too scared to say the wrong thing and sway him in a different direction, because he's so fragile right now. And I know he's going through depression and he's going through his own journey. So I'm being very cautious with what I say, because I don't want him to take it personally either. Sometimes I feel like sometimes when you share emotions, people might take it the wrong way. And it's not about them, it's about me, how I feel. But I feel like he might internalize it and have his own guilt. And I don't want to give him that guilt.
Wow. What makes sense is that you're taking on a lot that doesn't belong to you. And what I mean by that, you are obviously, this caring, loving, wonderful daughter and mom. And I think as human beings, everything, it comes from this such a deep place of love that, we want to protect our children. We want to protect each other from pain. Really, when it comes right down to it, we want to protect each other from anything that is going to cause us physical or mental suffering. And so you're suffering, your dad is suffering,
Yes.
Your mother is probably suffering.
Oh, we know.
Your brother's suffering. Your husband's suffering because everybody's worried about each other.
Like I said at the beginning, when someone is sick, we are all sick with them. It is
Yes.
not a one person situation. Everyone is attached. If you love the person, you are suffering too, period.
Yes, and I agree with that. That
Mhm.
it is, you get into your, yes, because we want everybody to be okay. And I know that when my brother died, none of us talked about it because it was too painful. And also because it made it really real. But really, one of the biggest reasons I think we didn't talk about it was we were under this impression that it was going to cause my parents more pain. That if we brought up my brother's name, it was going to
More trauma.
add more trauma. But of course, we know that that's not true because we know that our parents are very well aware that they lost their child and it's never not on their mind. It's on their mind every day, all day, every minute. And that really talking about it releases pressure like a pressure cooker. It's like hitting that button and letting the steam roll off.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, and I hear what you're saying about your dad, but do you think, trying to think of how to ask this question. Do you think that you pushed your father into getting his surgery?
Yes.
You do believe that.
I know it for a fact. I do. My mom, we were having a frank conversation. She said to me, like, Muriel, that my dad said, Muriel's the reason why I did surgery. He said it. I am the reason. So, whatever happens now in this new chapter of his life, I feel like I am not to blame, but I am part of it. So, his happiness, his suffering, all his treatments, I feel I'm connected to that. So it's a big burden in a way. Words have weight. So just hearing that was really tough.
There's so many things I want to say right now because there's nothing that I can say that's going to alleviate that sense of guilt. I
Exactly.
know it because there's nothing anybody could have said to me about the guilt that I had with my brother. Nobody. You could have, I don't care who you were. I don't care what you do for a living. I had to work through that on my own. I had to, for me, I wrote my way through it because that's what I knew how to do. The one thing I do know that I can say with a good amount of certainty, which is what I said earlier, ultimately, we make our own decisions. We just do. We can be influenced, of course. There are a lot of things that, we poll people all the time, right? If we have a big decision to make. And ultimately, at the very end of the day, we take in that polling and we make a choice. Your father made a choice to go through this because he was going to be a grandfather. That's a pretty powerful motivation, personally, I think, because I think a large majority of people probably would make that decision, right? You have this additional important family member coming into life that you would like to be there for. And I say that because my mother at 66 years old had a massive stroke and lost her ability to speak. She became aphasic. And she didn't want to live anymore because she lost so much of her abilities. And so what I spent 12 and a half years trying to inspire my mother to want to live.
Isn't that
Right.
exhausting?
It's exhausting. And it made, I don't really know that it made any difference whatsoever because I could not take away my mother's suffering. What I could give her were little pockets of joy. And that's what you do, right? Your daughter, you give your father these little pockets of joy because here's something else I want to say to listeners and to you. I believe this deeply. And so I will preface it with that. I don't believe any of us die 1 second before we're supposed to. Our suffering, everything that we go through in life is for our soul's growth. And I think that when we can really actually wrap our mind around that notion that what your father is going through is really important for his own soul's growth. And it's painful to bear witness to somebody else's pain that we love. And it's also sacred and it's holy. It's a very holy experience and it's excruciating. I often say that we're more humane to our pets than we are to human beings. We'll put our pets down when something happens, but human beings will keep alive until seriously, they just can't be kept alive anymore, even by all of these
Really,
machines.
it's really tough to watch. But luckily, my dad is extremely strong. He has a lot of faith, and I think his faith has helped him tremendously. And he keeps saying, "This is a test. I am being tested. I'm going to stay strong." And not everyone is religious, but for him, that's what is helping him kind of anchor him and keep him moving forward as well. So I commend him, but it's hard.
And I commend you
Thank you.
and, and your whole family. And where I was going with, when you think about how joyful we feel when somebody else has a success, right? You share in that joy. It's the
Mhm.
same with pain, right? And so, of course, it's much more enjoyable to celebrate joy with someone than it is to sit in someone's pain with them. But that is also our own life path journey, right? When we are sharing in someone's pain and we can't do anything about it, which brings us full circle to the idea of grief. Because people often don't know what to do when someone is grieving. And my listeners know I say, don't do anything. Just be present in someone's pain.
Yeah.
Just listen if they want to talk. I will extend that same thing when we are with people in our life, whether they are terminal or just dealing with, a chronic physical illness or whatever it might be, that what we can be is present. And going back to this friend, I'm not sure if I said this while the show was being recorded, but my dear friend who had esophageal cancer, who I used to sit with, and he was terminal. We both knew he was going to die, and he was scared of dying. And so we would sit together and I would just let him talk about whatever he wanted to talk about. And I wanted to heal him. I wanted to take away his pain. I wanted to take away his anxiety. And at the very same time, I knew that just being present was enough, was just enough.
Yeah, I remember when my friend was going through a miscarriage, I would go on Google and I'd say what to do, what to say, how to support my friend. And the majority of what I found was just listen, just sit there. There's nothing you can say that will make them feel better, will take away their pain. They have to go through it. So, but to just sit there and listen and watch someone suffer is also very difficult.
Painful. It's painful.
Yes.
It is what it is, right? I mean, why do you think parents, when their little child skins their knee, they want to kiss away the boo-boo, right? They want to kiss away the pain and make it
The
all better.
fear.
And that's all we want to do. We want to kiss it and make it all better. And yet the spiritual walk that we do is we hold each other's hand and we help see each other through, not see through each other, right? That beautiful
That's
saying.
so nice. Yes.
And I can't take away your guilt, but what I hope that what this conversation can do is remind you that you're not that powerful. None of us are that powerful to take away somebody else's choices. They make their choices based on what is going on around them. And the gift and the love and the beauty of your presence with your father is enough. So now let's transition to your baby.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm still processing the word enough because that one is tough in general to accept that you're just enough.
just enough. Well, none of us believe we're enough, right? That can be another whole podcast
Yes,
conversation in and of itself.
in work and in everything. This has been a constant battle.
And so, because now that we're sitting there, I wanted to transition to your daughter because I'm interested to know. I'm sure there's guilt there somewhere around the energy that you've given to your family, and are you giving enough to your daughter, right? So, can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience has been like of trying to raise this baby? She's one, she's
Yes,
here,
yes.
and also trying to be there for your husband and
Mhm.
trying to be there for your family. How
Yes.
have you navigated that, Muriel?
So I feel like I've done a pretty good job at trying to, I hope the right word is compartmentalize or just to kind of put it in sections. Like when I am with her, I'm with her and I focus on her. But I think the biggest guilt is knowing that I want to go see her grandparents. And I put her in that car. I say, we're going to go see Teta Jiddo now. And in the back of my mind, I know it's because she is going to bring them joy, not the other way around sometimes. So I feel guilty that she's kind of she already has a job. And her job is to go and bring joy to my family and to bring laughter and to change the topic and to kind of get everyone's mind off of cancer, off of sickness, off of sadness. I don't know if it's something to feel guilty about, but I do. I do. That's really where there's guilt.
I'm smiling. Oh, is she going to come in and wave to us?
She wants to wave. Elise, you want to say hi? Say hi to my friends.
Come say hello to everybody.
My bright light.
Oh my Lord. Hello, beautiful girl. Hi.
Did you have a good time with your dad? Did you go on a nice walk? Did you make any friends?
She is just perfect.
She is. She has been a gift from day one, right? Yes.
Yep. She says, yep, I'm a gift. So going back.
Touch the keyboard. Okay, honey, I'll see you. I'll see you soon.
So going back to what you said about it being her job, where you can really let go here is they just are light. They don't know anything else. So it's not a job. They just emanate light and love because they haven't grown up and learned and, you know, and gotten deep into their ego where all of our neuroses are. They're just here living life. Let her be that ball of light right now. Just let her be. That's all she is. She doesn't have a job. She can't be anything more than light.
That's right. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. She just is like, here, let me go spread it everywhere. That's why we all love to be around children.
Yes.
Because I mean, again, I'm just thinking about some of the parallels that our lives have had, because with my mom, it was the same way when my youngest brother started having babies. I'm like, bring the babies over. Never even occurred to me that they had a job, because they just are this beautiful ball of energy and joy and love. And the wild thing is, because they carry that energy, that even if you can't see it, they are creating healing in a room, even if it's not tangible. Nobody can see it. It's just a powerful energy that you are bringing into this area that needs healing.
And that's what she is. She's healing, because every time I go over, my dad's cheeks get pinker. He gets so excited. He stays in bed the day before, the whole day, to get some energy for the next day, because he knows we're coming. So he gets so excited for us to come and visit. And we have all these, I see him like trying to run after her and do these things that I know he can't do right now, but he's pushing himself to another level just for her. And I think it's just so beautiful that we have these moments. I take pictures of everything. My camera has no storage because I take videos of them together all the time. And I'm so grateful.
Yes. Live there in that gratitude, because you were an inspiration for your father to have this additional courage to get this surgery. And now your father and his granddaughter
have this bond,
have their own. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I just got chills. I feel like I want to cry. They have what you gave them both.
Yes.
Is a gift. Like, let's throw the grief over the shoulder and let's accept the gift for what it is. And so what if you did think about it in that way? I have this exercise I do with people. It's called grudges to gratitude, or regret to gratitude. And it's like, what if you flipped that narrative where you actually handed your daughter and your father this gift of this bond that they get to have together, that has nothing, that's outside of you, right?
It's so special. And she says the word jiddo because she waits for him and he sees her. And a few months ago, he looked at me and said, I'm so happy I can see her. I can play with her and not just see her from heaven, and not just watch and want to hold her and hug her. I can actually do it. And I said, okay, I'm going to hold on to that and not hold on to what my mom told me a few months ago. I'm going to just hold on to this moment and let it hopefully fuel me. So you're so right, Susan. I gave them a gift. I'm Santa.
You gave them a gift,
Yeah.
right? If you think about us as souls, we're these spiritual beings, and it's just an exchange, an energetic exchange between each of us. And that's what's happening between your daughter and your father. What he said 4 months ago, he was in a different place 4 months ago, and it
Yes.
doesn't really, that's where he was then. And I
Mm.
can see your beautiful little rosy cheeks, like you're glowing a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting to kind of put that aside for a bit and
Yeah,
enjoy.
just joy. Like you can't know what the future holds for your father. None of us know what the future holds. But
Mhm.
if we could stop leaping into the future and stop traversing back into the past and just be right here, right now, because this is the only thing that actually exists between us,
That's right.
right? So now I'm into the top of the hour, so I'm going to ask you a question after this conversation. So it's going to be two parts now, because based on what you said, I want to know how you take care of yourself. I want to know what self-love looks like, being a mother and being a supporter and
Mhm.
being a daughter and being a sister and all of these roles that you're playing, and a wife simultaneously. How do you show Muriel self-love? What do you do for you?
So I think for me, I think of self love, self care. It can be the smallest moment. It doesn't have to be a huge gesture for you, just a quiet moment for yourself to just recenter, refocus, and to be kind to yourself. So for me, just sometimes watching a show just by myself, scrolling on my phone without thinking, or just going on a walk or having a shower, those are kind of my self-care moments. And also being with people I love. Even it doesn't have to be by yourself. It can be with a friend, or it can be with my daughter. It can be just a fun, happy, carefree moment. That's how I take care of myself.
And I think I asked you this earlier. What do you do with all of these complex emotions that you have? This is the two parts to the
Yeah.
self-care, self-love. Do you talk about it? Do you have a safe place where you can go to just talk?
So I think for me, and I'm sure I have to work on this, like I said, I kind of go day by day, but I don't really dive deep into the emotion, or I kind of graze it. And I just want to go on to the next day, and I don't fully live in the moment. I'm listening to you speak, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to start being more in the present. I need to understand the why behind my emotions. There's so much I feel like I need to start doing better for myself. But no, I don't really talk to anyone about it, but I do have amazing friends I lean on. My husband is so helpful, so supportive, and he's always an advocate of my self care. I don't think I respect single parents so much. I have no idea how they do it, but they're amazing. They're my heroes because it really does take a village. But I think I'm having trouble answering this because I'm realizing that I don't really do a lot of self reflecting.
Well, and even, and it's interesting, like I said earlier, I asked the question again for a reason, because I think it's hard to self-reflect, as I said, when you're in the middle of all of this
Yeah.
stuff. But
Well,
I'm stressing the talking. Not that you got to talk through everything, but I guess the point being, like, some of the stuff, this is all self-care. So whether it's having a good friend that you can grab lunch with, or, if you and your husband, that you get to carve out time where you get to just sit and have conversation with your husband. The point being that I don't think that, you necessarily need to sit around and reflect all the time because you're a busy mother. Like you've got a lot going on,
yeah.
and you don't have this time to sit there and go, well, let me process on the last year. But just making a conscious effort, and this is to listeners too, of every day, what is the one thing I can do for myself today? Whether it's 5 minutes, maybe it's to take a deep breath and, drink your coffee, or whatever it is. It's being very intentional, especially given somebody like you who has a lot of demands on your time. Let's put it that way. Right, you just have a lot of demands on your time. And where is that tiny little pocket that
Yeah.
belongs to you?
Yes.
So I'm just putting that out there too for listeners as well, because
In the
it's such,
pocket.
yeah, something. I want to thank you so much for this hour. Feels like it's been about 5 seconds. I cannot believe how
Yeah,
fast this
I've had such a
conversation.
good time. I really have. It's been so nice. You're so open. It's so easy to talk to you and just to, I feel like I just, bleh. So I hope I made sense. I
It
hope
was, it
my
was,
story makes sense. Yeah.
no, it was so fabulous. I want you to stay on for a few minutes, but can you tell people if they want to find you, do you have any social media like?
I have social media. It's Muriel Toubassy, just a regular person with an Instagram. I have a teacher handle, but that one doesn't really have kind of that grief story. It has more of the my classroom and everything. But I do have Muriel Toubassy, and they can find me on Instagram.
Yep, and we'll have that in the show notes too.
Yeah,
Is there anything else you want to say to listeners that maybe I didn't ask, or is there anything else you'd like to say to them?
I just want to say, to be kind to yourself, to lean on those who are around you that want to support you. If people are saying that they want to help you, take it. Take the help, take the listening ear. They want to lend a hand, grab their hand. Try your best to lean on others and find gratefulness wherever you can because and pockets of joy because it's going to help you through the really dark times.
Thank you, Muriel.
Mm.
Thank you, listeners, for
Okay.
tuning in. I hope you guys all have a beautiful week, and we'll see you here again next week. Bye for now.